If I can't keep my head held high enough, I'll just speak love and watch the smiles come, bring my spirits up. There's some shit I like to fix, but I still know that I'm blessed.
Welcome back to my coverage of the Kristen Smart case. And today we're going to do another Unsealed Documents episode. There's been some interesting things that have come out in more of the unsealed documents. And what we're going to review today is the full search warrant, all 16 pages for Ruben. But a lot of Paul's information is there because they had to use Paul's crimes or suspected crimes in order to get a search warrant for his father Ruben's property. A lot of this was already covered in testimony and trial, so I'm not going to go too deep into that. I want to touch on the things that haven't been revealed in the trial. What we do know is that LAPD has an open investigation with potential rape victims, and some of them were filmed in the videos we've heard about, Paul's homemade rape videos, which are in evidence. We already know about that. But there's literally possible rape charges that could be filed apparently at some point. In a July 2011 affidavit, it says that Paul was linked to a victim with DNA, and some people like to see all the legal docs, so I'm going to include all 16 pages here. I'm not going to read them cover to cover, but we're definitely going to touch on them. And then if you want to pause and look at every line, you can certainly do that, of course. The first 5 pages cover what we've already heard in testimony and we've heard over the years in coverage about Kristen at the party and how she went missing and how Paul lied and then lied some more. And then by page 6, they're already talking about a plea deal and talking about how Paul knows where she is and offers to lead authorities to Kristen's body. And for whatever reason, that fell apart. We have covered in previous episodes. I did find something I had been looking for. Remember Jennifer Hudson, the lady who, well, she was a teenager at the time, but now a woman, obviously, and put her under the skate ramp. And I've been wanting to know about this property, so I finally have an actual address. I do have a satellite view picture from 2002 and a couple other aerial photographs I was able to find. The property address is 10940 Sierra Trail in Wasna. But unfortunately, there's no street views. I tried to find those. Paul told her years back that he had killed Kristen. There was a few other tidbits related to Jennifer that didn't come out in court. She did say that when she pulled up that day, the second time she saw Paul, that when he saw her, he said something like, "You again." And also, she said that Paul recognized her. That's why he said that. And she just ignored him. And she barfed on her shoes a little bit when she realized that this is where Kristen was probably buried, according to what Paul had told her already. These unsealed docs also revealed that Detective Cole was able to ID Elaine, who was the owner of the property next to the property with a skate ramp back in 96. And Cole met with her at the property back April 27th of 2020. And Elaine was able to describe the location, the color, and the shape and size, positioning, all that regarding the skate ramp. After that, her sister was contacted, and she also confirmed the same information, which both of their information matched Jennifer's descriptions. So I found that interesting. The unsealed document, search warrant in particular, also reveals experiences with female co-workers of Paul's. Nobody's safe with this guy. So one co-worker from Garland's in Grover Beach, and by the way, that's on the playlist if you want to see the place where Paul worked. And this is all contained on page 8 of the warrant if you're someone who's pausing it to look at it line by line. And if you're like me, I always like to get, good visual to paint the picture as I read the stories. So what she had to say was, that she was sexually harassed by Paul, and by the way, her name is redacted, and rightfully so. There was 3 different times that he put his hand between her legs. He tried to pinch her breast. He pinned her to the ground and rubbed onions on her face as he held her there for 5 minutes and sexually battered her. Another female at Garland's said Paul grabbed her breast and buttocks unsolicited. And in August of 96, Paul showed up at a young lady's home in the middle of the night, rang her doorbell, and asked for a hug. She told him to leave. He climbed to her balcony and pounded on her sliding door. SLO PD came and removed Paul from the property. And we've heard about that one. I'm pretty certain it's the Cal Poly girls that happened to. Another female who worked with Paul at Coca-Cola said on February 25th of 2013 that Paul kept asking her to go out for drinks. He asked her 24 times over 4 days, even though she told him she didn't drink. And then on February 28th of 2013, when she firmly told Paul she wouldn't go out with him, Paul said, quote, "Okay, we can go back to the hotel and you can pass out," end quote. She told detectives she did not understand the comment since she doesn't drink. She was surprised. The unsealed document lists January 17th of 2007 that a reported rape victim that Paul had raped reported to Redondo Beach Police Department, and we already heard from her at the trial, or she may have been the one that we haven't heard from yet. I'm not 100% sure. The top portion of page 9 talks about July 6th of 2011, how there was a cold hit in CODIS on Paul's DNA. Paul is in CODIS for a previous felony arrest, and it confirmed that Paul raped the victim where the DNA matched. It's confirmed that on February 5th of 2020 that the search warrants were served for Ruben and Paul's place. And I'm not going to do a whole lot of commentary on this. I am going to read through most of page 9 because it has a lot to unpack. During the search of Paul Flores' residence, numerous electronic devices were seized for forensic evidence. A search of each device was later conducted pursuant to search warrant numbers 13663 and 13697. When the forensic examination was conducted, some shocking files were located. Flores had numerous homemade pornographic videos which depict who we know to be Paul Flores, digitally penetrating, sodomizing, and having sexual intercourse with unconscious females. These videos appeared to be filmed inside the bedroom belonging to Paul Flores, as the furniture, wall fixtures, bed, etc. all match how the residence appeared during the search warrant. Various videos have audio where Paul Flores speaks. Investigators who are familiar with Paul Flores recognize the voice in the video to be his, and you can see his face in one video. Many of the videos located were saved in a file titled Practice and located on Paul Flores' external hard drive and computer. During many of the homemade videos, there is no audible response from any of the female subjects. There is little to no movement by the female subjects, for that matter, which makes one question the state of consciousness and level of consent that can be given for the sex acts performed. Numerous pornographic videos and images of children under the age of 18 engaging in sexual conduct, oral copulation, sodomy, sexual intercourse, and masturbation were also located. Thousands of files were reviewed and found to have young teenage boys and girls naked in various photo series. There were images of teenage boys and girls performing sex acts with adults. The amount of pornographic content on Paul Flores' electronic devices were enormous. He appears to be obsessed with sexual conduct involving intoxicated and under the influence females. There are numerous rape fantasy videos, sexual intercourse with intoxicated females, and sexual intercourse with females who are unconscious. This evidence was turned over to the Los Angeles Police Department for further investigation. So like I said, that was a lot. And if this case couldn't get any more disgusting, we now have child pornography introduced into the situation. And if any of you watched the Wasna episode, you probably remember when Bobby accidentally referred to Paul as a pedo, and we clarified it in the video. And now to hear this, I am practically speechless. I was trying to say speechless, but I'm so shocked I'm pretty tongue-tied, to be honest with you. What am I missing here? I've wondered all this time. Why did he get away with this for so long? Why hasn't he been charged for any other rapes? And now I want to know why the F he's not being charged for child pornography. I'm sorry, but this is ridiculous. I'm so disgusted by crimes that involve children like this. That's why I kind of just read through that and didn't put my tonality in it and things that I usually do. I just can't deal with these things. I've seen it before where someone's wanted for a big crime, but they at least bring him in on smaller crimes. And I just don't understand in Paul's case. He had a warrant for his arrest back in '96 when they talked to him about Kristen. They didn't arrest him. He breaks the law time and time again, and I don't get it. What the hell was this sicko saying to himself in those videos? I mean, what is wrong with this guy? I truly never expected this level of twisted depravity. Even Dateline has picked up on this story, and the local news as well, as far as his venereal obsession. It's just disturbing. And by the way, that isn't just in reference to a sexual transmitted disease. Continuing on, completing page 9 at the bottom, it says, this type of predatorial behavior has a direct correlation to Kristen Smart. Investigation witnesses confirm Kristen was under the influence the night she disappeared. All evidence mentioned historical witness statements of Paul's unwanted sexual advances and sexual assaults on multiple females paint clear, predatorial mindset he holds. Detectives strongly believe this all contributed to the disappearance of Kristen Smart. Page 10 of the warrant goes into more detail regarding the prescriptions said to have been used to drug and incapacitate women, and apparently the tramadol was for canines, and Dr. Show reviews drug effects in the warrant there, and especially combined with alcohol. Page 10 goes over more calls with Paul and his mother, Susan. Most of it's already been entered in as evidence as far as the wiretaps, but there was one where Susan called Paul and said she needed to visit him and get his finances in order because he's going to be arrested. Susan wanted to know how to pay his bills, out of what accounts, how to care for his dogs, etc. She said that bail would be too high and they couldn't afford to bail him out. Page 11 covers more on Paul's third sexual assault victim, the one that never made it to the trial, as expected. I'm a little worried about her. I hope she's okay. Her initials are TK, and she was ID'd as one of the victims from Paul's homemade rape videos. And she originally met Paul that night at a local bar, and she ID'd herself in the rape video when she recognized herself, where she is clearly unconscious with her eyes rolled back in her head. Page 11 goes into something I knew about, but it didn't come out in court, and it gives a little more insight. So it's about Angie, Paul's ex-girlfriend, and she said they were play fighting one night. Paul was not drinking, and he snapped. He just changed. He put a butter knife to her throat, and she said he was in a weird zone and wouldn't get off of her. He got serious and was no longer play fighting. She got scared. He hurt her, and so she screamed. The male roommate that lived with them came and told Paul to get the fuck off of her. And weeks later, Paul punched her in the arm in another fight, so she slept on the couch that night and left the home and Paul the next day, never to return again. Paul was wasted a different night before they broke up, and he wanted to confess something to her. Then he said he couldn't tell her, and he passed out in a drunken stupor. At first, she had thought Paul was cheating on her, but Paul refused to tell her, And later on, she learned about Kristen, and so she thinks that's what he was possibly wanting to confess to her. Now heading into page 12, this is related to David, Ruben's roommate, who we did hear his testimony already, but there's a few things that didn't come out in court. It says on February 24th of 2021, David told investigators he was 100% sure that Ruben had disposed of Kristen. He said Ruben refused to sell the old Volkswagen, even though David said people were interested in buying it. Ruben told David that it was his daughter's car, or Melinda, and he'd never sell it, and no one was allowed to even touch the Volkswagen. David thinks the Volkswagen was used to move Kristen's body in 1996. Okay, page 13 goes into the GPR and archaeological and him direct information. We've already heard that. And page 14 discusses the March 18th, 2021 Volkswagen search, where there was some hair. The only items of interest that were found at all were these hairs, and they were sent to be forensically examined later. In this warrant, it says that Ruben has been uncooperative and evasive. They mentioned CBS 48 Hours crime documentary from November 28th of 2020. They mentioned that Flores could flee and that Ruben's daughter in Washington is very, very protective of Ruben and extremely uncooperative with law enforcement. They go over December 2019 that Ruben visited his daughter in Washington State. Law enforcement states that for 24 years, the Flores family has sheltered and assisted Paul with this case and continue to do so. Page 15 says that the homes that they own can be used for bail collateral, and that means Paul, Ruben, and Susan, they all own homes. A wiretap revealed Ruben received over $100,000 from unknown sources. Page 15 also mentions that law enforcement believes Paul killed Kristen. They named Ruben Ricardo Flores to be arrested for PC 32 with no bail. They expressed concerns that Ruben could move Kristen again to continue to cover up for Paul. And page 16 is signatures and dated April 6, 2021. Continuing on with basically the vein of discussion here. Besides the other victims we've heard testify, there's also the 15-year-old victim who was raped by Paul back in '94 when he was also a teenager. And the description here is the same old story where Paul handed her a drink and she was drugged and raped. And our Wasna episode covers her story in more detail, but that is mentioned here that her parents rushed her to the local hospital. Her story wasn't believed. Then we move on to another victim from 1995 where Paul grabbed her in the crotch. Her name was Sarah. It was at a party. And another time, she saw him at a party and ran into the bathroom, and he crashed into the bathroom door and threatened to rape her. And in 2013, they note a Redondo Beach rape, and we heard about that one in court, but I guess there wasn't enough evidence to prosecute. And they mentioned the 2020 raid of Paul's LA area home, where they found additional porn movie titles that we haven't heard about. Those porn titles were Drugged and Raped While Passed Out, and Blonde High School Girl in Skirt Gets Raped. The rest has been testified to in court or other parts of the coverage. I feel like I need to take a shower after covering all that. I'm so disturbed. I'm looking forward to this all being over, mainly for justice for Kristen, but to be honest, I can't take much more. It's really wearing on me. This is such a sick, sick man. As always, justice for Kristen.
If I can't keep my head held high enough, I'll just be love and watch the smiles come.
Thanks for watching.
Bring my spirits up.
Don't forget to stop and smell the flowers.
There's some shit I like to fix, but I still know that I'm blessed.